When you read Roald Dahl's books as an adult, you'd most likely wonder if they were really made for kids. Why? Because lurking beneath the chocolate and all the whimsy is a world of darkness, cruelty, oppression, and even revenge. It might be hard to believe, but even though Dahl's stories were childhood favorites, books like Matilda, The Witches, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory aren't just fun little tales. They hold deeper messages that hit differently when you're older. So let's dive beneath the surface and explore the deeper meanings these stories carry. Roald Dahl was a very problematic man, and if you look deeply enough, you might just catch glimpses of him reflected in his stories. Take for example his dark humor. He was well known for weaving words so cleverly, intertwining them with a twisted humor that would later become a hallmark of his writing style. And while this particular style of humor didn't quite catch the fancy of some, many lined up, waving their cash eagerly to get the latest of his stories. So how was it that a man so deeply controversial managed to craft stories that kids and adults read and enjoy to date? To understand this, we've got to take a look at the man himself. Dahl was born in 1916 and lived a long, healthy life until his passing in 1990. It's safe to say that his life was a roller coaster full of adventure, hardship, and even personal loss. And it's not surprising that all of these greatly influenced his writing. Throughout his life, he witnessed quite a lot of terror. First, he served as a fighter pilot in World War II, worked as a spy for British intelligence, and sadly suffered the tragic loss of his daughter, Olivia, to measles. Plus, his wife also had severe health struggles, capping the lid on the tumultuous experiences that shaped his view of the world. It's therefore unsurprising that his books are often described as weird, strange, and sometimes disturbing. I mean, when one has seen so much tragedy in a lifetime, it's only natural that it shapes their creativity to an extent. And boy was Dahl creative. His children's books, for one, explored the darker side of childhood, but he did it in a way that's both unsettling and oddly comforting. The villains always get what they deserve, and his stories are fun and often hilarious. Don't believe me? Just read The Twits to a 7 or 8-year-old and watch them burst into laughter. Anyway, his creative spark aside, the man behind the humor wasn't exactly admirable. He was problematic, controversial, and openly anti-Semitic with views that cast a long shadow over his legacy. But I'll try not to shimmy down that road. Now, let's bring our focus back to Dahl's works, kicking off with Matilda, the very last story he wrote before his passing. Matilda follows the life of the eponymous heroine, a brilliant book-loving girl born into a neglectful family that dismisses her intelligence. Her home life is a wreck, and so is her school life as she faces the cruel headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, who terrorizes students with harsh punishments. However, with the support of her kind teacher, Miss Honey, Matilda discovers she has telekinetic powers. Using her wits and newfound abilities, she outsmarts Trunchbull, forcing her to flee, and helps Miss Honey reclaim her rightful inheritance. In the end, Matilda finds the loving home she deserves when Miss Honey adopts her. It's a great story with a happy ending, but upon closer reflection, it's pretty obvious that it was more than just words on paper. Beneath this heartwarming tale lies a deeper message, one that speaks to power, intelligence, and rebellion in ways that only become clearer with age. Keep in mind that Dahl wrote Matilda in the 1980s, a time of major cultural shifts. Firstly, the rise of consumerism and television's influence, which I believe he critiques through Matilda's TV-obsessed family, was a big concern. Secondly, at the time, education debates were also a hot topic in Britain, as some schools emphasized discipline over creativity, much like Crunchem Hall under Trunchbull. I've got to admit, when I first read Matilda, I found it really cool because she had powers and was tough enough to stand up to the adult bully. In fact, I think to the majority of those who read it as kids, Matilda was just an inspiring story about a smart girl with telekinesis standing up to bullies. However, now that I'm older and hopefully smarter, it's pretty clear that the book is a sharp critique of authoritarianism. How so? Well, there's Miss Trunchbull, a representation of oppressive power, and Matilda, who embodies intellectual resistance. It's a contrast that highlights the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of critical thinking. Miss Trunchbull, with her draconian rules and brutal punishments, comes off as a caricature of authoritarian regimes, where power is wielded as a means of control and intimidation. In contrast, Matilda's intellect, empathy, and telekinetic abilities make her a powerful symbol of resistance against oppression. Another aspect of the book that stuck with me is the social commentary on class and privilege that is woven throughout the novel. The contrast between the Wormwoods and Miss Honey is pretty evident. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood are utterly self-absorbed and materialistic, with a lavish lifestyle that is devoid of any real emotional connection or intellectual curiosity. Miss Honey, on the other hand, lives in a small, rustic cottage and is portrayed as being gentle, humble, and genuinely invested in her students' well-being. It's a disparity that doubles as a commentary on the social class system, highlighting the difference between those who have and those who do not. While the Wormwoods are wealthy and privileged, there isn't much to say about their morals and their neglectful attitude towards their daughter's needs. Meanwhile, there's Miss Honey, who is from a lower socioeconomic background and is kind, compassionate, and genuinely invested in the well-being of her students. From an adult lens, Matilda offers a subtle, thought-provoking commentary on social class and privilege that also highlights how socioeconomic status can shape our experiences, opportunities, and relationships. That's definitely something I didn't see as a kid. Speaking of, have you ever wondered what the deeper meaning behind the witches is? Now, let me be honest, this book is a straight-up creepy story about witches hiding in plain sight. When I first read this as a child, I couldn't help but feel for my future therapist, because it came off as a traumatic episode waiting to happen. But I've come to realize that that's what makes it so great. It was terrifying when I was younger, but now I see that the undertones of fear and paranoia, the sense of unease that permeates every page, are actually a clever commentary on the dangers of prejudice, xenophobia, and the destructive power of fear-mongering. If you don't recall the tale of the witches, here's a refresher for you. The tale follows a young boy who learns from his Norwegian grandmother that witches are real and secretly live among ordinary people, disguised as women. With this thought in the back of his mind, he goes on vacation where he stumbles upon a gathering of witches led by the terrifying Grand High Witch, who unveils a plan to turn all children into mice using a magic potion. The boy is caught and transformed, but with his grandmother's help uses his new form to sabotage the witches, leading to their destruction. Though he remains a mouse, he embraces his new life, setting out with his grandmother to hunt down the remaining witches worldwide. At first glance, the story is just about witches disguised as ordinary women, secretly plotting to eliminate children, but when you look deeper past the rather unsettling ending, it taps into centuries-old anxieties about powerful women being perceived as dangerous or deceptive. Historically, real-life witch hunts targeted women who defied societal norms, the majority of whom were widows, healers, or simply those who lived independently. And Dahl's witches fit into this long-standing trope. They are powerful, manipulative, and feared. However, some critics argue that The Witches unintentionally reinforces the stereotype of the evil woman. According to them, the Grand High Witch, the ultimate villain, is a commanding leader with supernatural abilities, much like how women in power have often been viewed with suspicion throughout history. Then there's also the idea that witches wear wigs and gloves to hide their true monstrous forms, which plays into themes of deception, another common accusation against women who challenge traditional roles. Nonetheless, others see the theory as more of a commentary or hidden evil in society, regardless of gender. To me, it's less about demonizing women and more about teaching children that danger doesn't always look obvious. After all, the boy's grandmother, a woman herself, serves as his wise protector and is the one who ultimately helps him fight back. But hey, that's just my perspective. When it comes to Dahl's own views on women, let's just say they were pretty controversial. But there's also a chance that the time period in which he wrote the text likely influenced its themes. It was published in 1983, and if there's one thing we know about the 80s, it's that it saw a surge in discussions about feminism, women's rights, and shifting gender roles, which may have shaped the book's portrayal of witches as secretive, powerful, and dangerous women hiding in plain sight. I would say The Witches is a fantastical story, as it reflects real-world anxieties of the time, whether about power, deception, or the safety of children in an unpredictable world. But would I read it again? That I do not know. Finally, let's examine Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, a book I feel is a literal critique of capitalism, inequality, and morality. Don't get me wrong, when I first read the book, none of this jumped at me. In fact, I quite liked Willy Wonka, and yeah, that might be because I really just wanted a tour of his chocolate factory. What I'm trying to say is that the book is a fun adventure about a poor boy getting a golden ticket to a candy wonderland. And if you grew up not so privileged like me and Charlie, you'd understand why this one was a fan favorite amongst kids. Everyone wanted to win a golden ticket. Well, at least until we realized what truly was going on at the factory. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is about young Charlie Bucket, a poor but kind-hearted boy who wins a coveted golden ticket to visit Willy Wonka's mysterious chocolate factory. Alongside 4 spoiled children, he embarks on a fantastical tour filled with magical inventions and strict moral lessons. Unfortunately, the other kids are all flawed, and one by one they all fall victim to imperfections such as greed, gluttony, and pride. In the end, Charlie is the last kid standing, and impressed by his humility and goodness, Wonka reveals that the entire contest was a test to find a worthy successor. Charlie inherits the factory, ensuring a bright future for his family and Wonka's sweet legacy. As an adult, this book feels very much like a brutal satire of greed, entitlement, and consumer culture. Charlie comes from extreme poverty, while the other children come from wealthy or privileged backgrounds. Yet, their privilege doesn't save them. Instead, their bad behavior and their desperate need for more led to their downfall. You know how people say kids could sometimes be an obvious reflection of their parents? I'm not talking about looks, but attitude. Well, to me, it just kind of seems like the adults did a terrible job at teaching their kids the basics of compassion and kindness. Although the book doesn't exactly dwell on the parents, if you're a parent reading it, you kind of start to see how much influence the parents in the book have on their children's behavior. Each of the spoiled kids act the way they do because of the way they were raised. Veruca's greed, fueled by parents who give her everything she wants. Augustus's gluttony, enabled by a family that never tells him enough. It's a subtle but powerful message. Kids aren't born entitled, rude, or reckless. More often than not, it's learned behavior. So, parents, do better and check yourself from time to time. Are you raising a Charlie or a Veruca? Greed aside, let's talk about the economic disparity we didn't quite see as kids. Wonka's factory is amazing. It's got all these hidden workers called Oompa Loompas and surreal wealth. Well, what if I told you these guys don't get paid? That's right, they were brought from a foreign land to live and work under Wonka's rule. Now, you tell me, is it a paradise or a form of exploitation? Interestingly, Dahl had initially written the Oompa Loompas as African pygmies. However, he later changed this approach due to very obvious racist connotations. But don't raise your brows, like I said earlier, this guy wasn't exactly admirable. Anyway, I think the biggest thing that rubbed off on me as a child and still as an adult has got to be the power of pure-heartedness. Despite its many faults and trauma-inducing descriptions, this story sent a message that goodness and humility triumph over selfishness. While as adults, it's definitely difficult to overlook the story's economic and moral critiques, it still holds a hopeful idea that decency and kindness, even in an unfair world, can lead to success. Still, while kids see a fun candy adventure, adults might see something much deeper, a reflection of society's flaws, power imbalances, and the eternal battle between greed and virtue. What other Dahl stories left the biggest impression on you? Tell me in the comments. Also, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified whenever we upload a new video.